Volantis is the oldest of the free cities, founded at some point after the destruction of the old Empire of Geese, becoming the first colony of the Valyrian freehold. Established to protect the borders of the freehold, Volantis was little more than a garrison through the first 100 years of existence, inhabited by soldiers exclusively. The Black Walls, great oval of dragonstone, guarded Valyrian Outpost at that time, and contained all the processes before they spread out outside the walls, where taverns and brothels and stables began to sprout up, and merchant ships began to call as well. The black walls are so thick that 6 4-horse chariots can race around its top abreast, which is done annually to celebrate the founding of Volantis. They are 200 feet high and are considered the heart of Volantis, where only scions of the old blood able to trace their ancestry to Valyria are allowed to dwell. The black walls today protect a large labyrinth of palaces, courtyards, towers, temples, cloisters, bridges, and cellars, containing a city within the city. The climate of Volantis is hot and humid. Beyond the waterfront and its breezes, the streets and alleys of Volantis are enough to drown a man in his own sweat. Heat shimmers off the streets, giving a dreamlike quality to the surroundings. There is also a smell that hangs in the air, rich, rank, and pervasive. There is fish in it, flowers, and some elephant dung, also something sweet and something earthy, and something dead and rotten. According to Tyrion Lannister, the city smells like an old whore. Volantis was blessed with a magnificent deep harbor from the very beginning, and after many centuries it is said by the Volantines that the 100 Isles of Bravos could be dropped into the harbor and disappear. Homes and shops and inns spread up the east bank of the river and into the hills beyond the black walls, whilst across the Rhine on the west bank the foreigners, freedmen, sellswords and other less savory elements threw up their own shadow city. In time, this shadow city on the west bank became a problem needed to be dealt with, so triarchs, chosen rulers of the city, sent slave soldiers across the Rhine to restore order. Strong tides and treacherous shifting currents made this task difficult, so after some years, the Triarch Walasso the Munificent commanded that a bridge be built across the Rhine. It required more than 40 years and great amounts of gold to complete this task, but once completed, the Long Bridge of Volantis had no rivals save for the Bridge of Dream in the Rhoynar festival city of Croyan. The Long Bridge of Volantis stands today as the longest bridge in all the known world. It is a great span with a fused stone road supported by massive piers. The Long Bridge's gateway at its eastern end is an arch of black stone carved with sphinxes, manticores, dragons, and other strange beasts. The road is barely wide enough for 2 carts to pass side by side, as buildings rise on either side of the roadway, including shops, temples, taverns, inns, and brothels. Most are 3 to 4 stories tall, in each floor extending farther than the one beneath it, so that the topmost floors almost reach each other. Customers can buy almost anything in the shops on the Long Bridge, so as thieves can steal almost everything. Almost, because goldsmiths and spicers keep guards at their doors. In the center of the bridge, the hands of thieves and heads of executed criminals are displayed by Volantine slave soldiers. Lomas Longstrider named this one of the 9 wonders made by man in his book of that title. However, at those times of developing and building the bridge, Volantis was only gaining its power through rivaling with the Rhoynar. Through time, nearby Rhoynish city Sarhoy declined, and this led to the lengthy Rhoynish Wars. As the surviving Rhoynar fled, their cities Volonteris, Valisar, and Selhoris fell under control of Volantis. Each of these cities is larger and more populous than the most prosperous cities of Westeros. After the doom of Valyria, the Volantines considered themselves the heirs to the freehold and rightful rulers of the world. They succeeded in this task for a time even, establishing hegemony over several of the other free cities during the Century of Blood. They made a mistake though. In their greed, Volantines sent a fleet to claim the Valyrian Peninsula, but it vanished in the smoking sea. Tommen II Lannister, King of the Rock, stayed at Volantis on his way to Old Valyria during the Century of Blood. Tommen promised half of what he would find to the Triarchs of Volantis, in return for their generosity and potential aid for their fleet. Triarch Marcello Tagaros sent ships after Tommen the following year, but no sign of the king was found. After 100 years of warfare, Volantis was on the verge of also conquering Tyrosh. At this point, they petitioned the Targaryens on Dragonstone to help them with the aid of their dragons, but the young Aegon Targaryen refused, and instead sided with Volantis' enemies. Volantis had overreached in its offensive against Tyrosh, and now a great alliance formed against them. Braavos and Pentos joined the war on Tyrosh's side, and also supported successful uprisings in Lys and Myr. Aegon Targaryen also joined the alliance with his young dragons, gaining them valuable battle experience. Even the king of the Stormlands in Westeros joined the alliance against Volantis. Aegon Targaryen flew to Lys and set ablaze a Volantene fleet preparing to invade the city. Volantis was further defeated at Dagger Lake, where galleys from Qohor and Norvos destroyed much of the Volantene fleet which had been on the ruin. Faced with so many enemies, Volantis was defeated, and its influence was since set to be to the south of the ruins. At the same time, no longer restrained by the power of the Valyrians and their dragons, the Dothraki mounted hordes began overrunning all of the lands east of the ruin. Due to its eastern location, Volantis was particularly hard hit. Though they failed in their attempts of conquest, many Volantines still regard themselves as the natural and rightful successors to the Dragon Lords of Old Valyria and desire to achieve dominance over the other free cities. Volantis is still a freehold. Like Valyria before it, all freeborn landholders, including women, are entitled to vote in elections to choose the rulers of the city, free triarchs. Triarchs must come from noble families that can prove an unbroken line of descent from Valyria. The elections last 10 days, with much campaigning and bribery. Chosen triarchs of Volantis are considered so elevated that they are not allowed to have their feet touch the ground during their year of service, so they travel everywhere by elephants. The Triarchs belong to one of two political parties, the Elephants and the Tigers. The Elephants are the party of the merchants and moneylenders advocating trade, while the Tigers are old aristocracy and warriors interested in conquest. The Tigers have been out of favor for the 300 years since the Century of Blood, never holding more than one position in the triumvirate. Some of the first elephants were women, one of whom, Triana, was returned 4 times. So in theory, women can become a triarch, but in practice the last female triarch was Triana herself, and her last election happened 3 centuries ago. Though the triarchy election strikes many outsiders as chaotic, power passes peacefully enough on most occasions. Still, there have been some exceptions. Most notable is that of the election of Triarch Horonno, who had been returned as Triarch for 40 years and thus decided to declare himself as Triarch for life during 41st elections. In response, he was seized by rioters soon after, tied between 2 elephants, and torn apart. Volantis remains the center of the slave trade in the free cities, and maintains sea and land links with Slavers Bay hundreds of miles to the east. There are 5 slaves in Volantis for each free man, a ratio surpassing even that of the cities in Slavers Bay itself. Slaves in Volantis are identified with facial tattoos. A trade cog tattoo is for slave sailors, squares of motley are for jesters and fools, a horse hat is for slaves who work in stables, flies on the cheeks is for dung showers who clean the city streets. Green tiger stripes indicate slave soldiers. Slave prostitutes have a single tear beneath their right eye. A wheel tattooed upon one cheek is for drivers of hot-eyes, carts pulled by dwarf elephants. Crossed hammers for builders, and fish for slaves that work on fishing vessels. There are also other categories of slave tattoos, though it is unknown which categories of slaves bear them, like a mask of blue feathers, a lightning bolt, a coin, a skull, and a jug. Whole different category of slaves is represented by the slaves owned by the priest of Lord of Light. The priests of Temple of the Lord of Light in Volantis buy slaves as children. These slaves of lore are raised as priests, temple prostitutes, or warriors. They wear the flames of their fiery god as tattoos. Slave warriors of the Red Temple are called the Fiery Hand, and they never number more or less than 1,000 members. Though many inside the Black Walls keep the old gods of Valyria, lore is favored outside the Black Walls by both slaves and freedmen. The Temple of the Lord of Light is located in the eastern half of Volantis, the rich part, and according to some sources, it is about 3 times the size of the Great Sept of Baelor in King's Landing. While Volantis was, at the time of the doom of Valyria, the mightiest of the free cities, in the centuries that followed it had to give up that position to Bravos. Still, Volantine coins called honors, with a crown on one face and death's head on the other, are treasured enough. Though these coins are little known in Westeros, as few ships from Westeros come as far as Volantis, and those who do fill their holds with silk and spice from the Jade Sea, and bend their oars for home, ignoring Volantine wine and sweet beets, which Volantines grow in profusion and serve in most major dishes in the city. Red beets and red god, such is the Volantis for the commoner. Red priests and priestesses like to point out their facial tattoos, explaining that they used to be slaves just like their audience. They are called red priests due to the loose crimson robes they wear. Enchanted by their preachings, parents sometimes give their children to temples of lore to be raised into the priesthood. Every evening, red priests light fires and sing prayers at their temples, asking lore to bring back the dawn. Followers often gaze into flames in an effort to receive visions of the future. The priests of lore also seem to be able to evoke fire with their bare hands and be able to control it to attack enemies or simply to impress common people. Some rites performed by the red priests include sacrificial immolation and administering the last kiss to the recently deceased. Their religion is based on a dualistic view of the world. Lore, the god of light, heat, and life, and Lore's antithesis, the great other, the god of ice and death. They are locked in an eternal struggle over the fate of the world, a struggle that, according to the ancient prophecies from the books of Ashai, will only end when Azor Ahai returns, wielding a flaming sword called Lightbringer. Benero is the high priest of lore at the Red Temple in the free city of Volantis. Benero is tall and thin. He has a shaven head, a drawn face, and skin as white as milk. Slave tattoos of flames cover his cheeks, chin, and shaven head to make a bright red mask that crackles about his eyes and coils down and around his lipless mouth. The ruling triarchs of Volantis live in great fear of Benero. He preaches that Daenerys Targaryen is Azor Ahai reborn, an ancient hero of the lore faith, and he encourages many to support her. This unnerves the triarchs, and they fear an uprising. Thousands come to see him preach every night, but the triarchs are powerless to stop him, as too many of the slave soldiers worship the Lord of Light, so the triarchs dare not order them to attack. The Triarch Malako attempts to hire the Golden Company to kill Benero and purge the temple of his followers, but the company refuses the offer. Tyrion Lannister becomes witness to Benero's preaching on the Long Bridge of Volantis. When Benero's voice rises to a crescendo, flames leap from his fingers with a sudden whoosh and make the crowd gasp. Tyrion sees that the priest can trace fiery letters in the air, and recognizes 2 Valyrian glyphs in 10. One is doom, the other darkness.